What's going on, fight fans? We're back after last week's MMA card for another UFC preview. This time we have the Gane versus Volkov headliner fight, headlining this fight night here in Vegas with tons of really exciting fights, a lot of finishes in store, and overall a good opportunity to play some Draftkings out there. I'm going to be covering the fighters with the highest potential to go for a knockout, a big finish, or just a big DFS score in general for Draftkings this weekend, and it's going to be my top 6 fighters to target. So here on Gsluke dfs, I implement a data-based approach to take on daily fantasy sports. I use mathematical modeling, visualizations that I learned while an electrical engineer to help take on fantasy sports and predict how players are going to perform. I use a lot of those concepts, like I mentioned, that I learned in school to help you guys with your DFS lineups. So make sure to check out my channel for a lot of my content. I post on the PGA Tour, NFL, NBA, UFC, DFS in general, pretty much everything there is to offer in terms of DFS. I also have a Patreon that I just launched. It's right now it's just for the PGA Tour. It's just $1 for the month. You get all my projections, all my tools for that. It's only $1 because it's on a trial basis right now. I made it as cheap as I possibly could. So get in there, check it out. I'll be adding more tools over the last few days, over the next few weeks as well. So look forward to all of that. And now for my top 6 fighters to target here on DraftKings. At number 6, we have Daniel Pineda, a plus 190 underdog versus Fili, who has a really nice price tag of $7,300. So Daniel Pineda and Fili, that is going to be an absolute firework, absolute firecracker of a fight. You have two guys that are very high output. They aren't afraid to throw big punches, some unorthodox striking as well. So I expect it to be a very exciting fight to watch, but even more so, I expect it to be a very high output and very high scoring fight on DraftKings. If you take a look at both fighters, both of them land over 5 significant strikes per minute. Both of them are also able to score takedowns in almost all their fights. So you're looking at two fighters that are going to be very high output. And again, I really like this fight, and I'm taking the Pineda side of this fight due to the susceptibility for a finish. If we take a look at Pineda and his MMA career, that's not just inside the octagon, that's across all the organizations. He has a 100% finish rate. He's coming in by 33% of his knockout wins coming by knockout. He's winning 67% of them by submission. So he's an absolute finishing artist. He's a KO artist. And again, Fili's the favorite. He's somebody who's a very solid fighter. Sorry about that, that might cut out. Yeah, he's somebody who relies on winning by decision though. By getting those takedowns, he doesn't really have that KO threat. And when you take a look at Pineda, he's a KO threat. He's a submission threat all over the place. Something I think that also goes into Pineda's shoe here is that he's a very, very good guillotine choke submission artist. He's somebody who has very strong biceps, very long arms as well. So a lot of times when he's getting taken down, when somebody's trying to score points on him, he just grabs the guillotine choke and ends the fight. We've seen it 3 times in the octagon already, and I really think that if Fili tries to take him down, that's a huge, huge risk that he's going to have to take. So overall, I like the chances of him scoring really well if it does go to a decision. Again, he's a really cheap fighter at $7,300, a very good loss. Putting up a lot of points at $7,300 is not going to kill you, especially in a cash game. So keep that in mind. I think he's very good in cash games, even if he loses the fight. But I obviously think he has a very good chance to get that finish. We've seen him finish 100% of his fights, so what's one more? At number 5 for my fighters to target, we have Owen St. Preux, a plus 145 underdog versus Tanner Boser, and he comes at a very nice price tag of $7,900. So OSP is making the move up to the heavyweight division. He's obviously been a stalwart of the light heavyweight division for quite some time now, but he is moving up to the heavyweight division, and what I think is a very, very good move for his career. So the last time out, we saw him a little bit sluggish on the feet. He looked a little bit slow compared to his competitors, and he ended up getting knocked out by Jamal Hill. Obviously, Jamal Hill's a young up-and-comer. He's very fast, very powerful. It just wasn't a good matchup for OSP. At his age, OSP is obviously getting a little bit slower. He's not as fast on his feet, but he's somebody who's always been a very, very good finisher. He finishes 48% of his fights by knockout. That's one of the best rates in all of the UFC. And he also comes in finishing 32% of his fights by submission. He's somebody who's a finishing threat on any part of the mat, whether it's on the feet, whether it's on the ground. And overall, I think that moving up to the heavyweight division is going to add even more power into his arsenal. We've seen people do it before. They put on that muscle mass. They're fighting at a weight that's a little bit more comparable to what they walk around normally. And I think for a lot of older fighters, that's very good. It's good for their cardio. It's good for their health in general. And I expect him to come out, use that new gain power, and potentially get a finish. Again, he comes in at number 5 because they don't have a ton of confidence in it. Tanner Boser is a very strong fighter. He's a fighter that loves to win by decision, just like Andre Fili. So he could make it a very boring fight. He could try to just fight at range and tire out OSP. I mean, that's kind of what Jamal Hill did before he just knocked him out cold. That's why he comes in at number 5, but he does have that very, very, very high likelihood of winning by finish. My number 4 target is going to be Tim Means, a favorite against Nicolas Dalby at -155, and he also only costs $8,400. So for a -155 favorite, you're getting inherent value right there. Typically, they're priced around the $9,000 mark, but you're getting him at $600 cheaper, and he comes in as a very, very nice matchup against Nicolas Dalby. I expect this to be fight of the night. You have 2 fighters that fight at a very high pace. They're also very good at grappling. So a lot of times when you find a fight with 2 high-paced fighters, they're very good at grappling. A lot of times they tend to try to avoid that grappling. When you know the other guy has submissions in his back pocket, when you know he's capable of reversing you, scrambling, causing scrambles, all that kind of stuff, you don't really want to grapple with someone like that. Even if you're Khabib, even if you're one of the best grapplers in the world, you are susceptible to getting finished. So you see guys like that a lot of times like to stand on the feet, just try to piece them up on the feet, especially if they're not very good like Nicolas Dalby is. So I expect this to be more of a slugfest than other people, especially Vegas thinks. And if we take a look at how Tim Means has done over his career, he has a 63% KO rate. That's one of the highest in all of the UFC. It's even higher than OSP, and he does have a 17% submission rate as well. So he's finishing 80% of his fights. He has a very, very large sample size. And as a result, I like his potential to come out, have a very high scoring affair against Nicolas Dalby. And even if he doesn't get a finish, even if Dalby has an iron chin like he's shown in the past, Tim Means throws 100, 120 significant strikes. He's going to land a few takedowns. He's going to have plenty of control time. He's going to score you more than enough points at $8,400. At number 3, we have Herbert, a +210 underdog versus Renato Moicano, and he comes in at just $6,800. The absolute lowest priced we've seen for somebody in my targets in quite some time, but I think he's worth a gander this week. When I first took a look at this fight, I definitely thought that Moicano was the side to take. He's coming in very experienced. He's somebody who is reliable in the UFC. But the more and more I looked at it, the more and more I thought Herbert has a good chance to upset Moicano. So Moicano is more of a grappler by heart. We've seen him score a lot of decision wins in the past. He's put punches in volumes. Again, had a lot of control time. But he doesn't have KO power. We haven't seen him get any knockouts in his MMA career. But if we take a look at Herbert, he did fall victim to Trinaldo his last time out, but that was due to a very, very strong punch. He got knocked out cold, and that's not a threat with Moicano. So I really like Herbert's chances, and the more and more I've looked into Herbert in his career before the UFC, he has an 80% knockout rate. That's absurd. So as soon as I saw that, I got really, really excited. He's a kickboxer. He's somebody who has very pinpoint strikes, somebody who has knockout power, even in the kickboxing realm. And now that he's able to put on more mass, he's able to strike with a little bit more power. He's able to use elbows, knees, etc. I think he has a real good chance to knock out Moicano. Now, obviously, he's a 210 underdog. Vegas knows a lot about the UFC. I say they know best at times. So he's not going to come in at number 1 or anything like that. But when you have a kickboxer, somebody who's very good with his striking, fighting somebody who's not good on their feet, that's always enticing to me. And if we take a look at Herbert's statistics in his career, he's never had his grappling actually like tracked. So it's always been in kickboxing where there's obviously no grappling. He has fought in some MMA associations before, but none of them have had published statistics. So we don't know if he's good at stuffing takedowns. I'm assuming that he knows he's been fighting Moicano for some time. He's obviously been working on stuffing some takedowns. So I think he's going to come in, maybe surprise the world, and score a very nice score in DraftKings. At number 2, we have Alexander Volkov, a +150 underdog versus Cyril Gane. And he also only costs $7,500. So He's my guy from the main event. I absolutely love his chances to come out, take down Cyril, Gane, gain some momentum back in that heavyweight division. Let's first talk about his opponent, Cyril Gane. So he's been surging of late. He's coming in showing a very well-rounded approach. He's undefeated in all of his MMA bouts to this point. But his biggest win was his last fight out, and that was against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who really put out a disappointing performance. He really never had a chance to win. Gane was able to stand at range, just used his kicks, used some of his jabs and whatnot, and Rozenstruik really just sat there. It wasn't until like the final round when Rozenstruik finally hit him square. It shook Gane a little bit, but he ended up winning a very handed decision. It was a 50-45 all across the board. Again, it wasn't close at all, and I just don't think Gane has gone through a real test to this point in the UFC. Before he was an MMA fighter, he was a very good wrestler. He was somebody who did kickboxing as well, but he never really fought in the MMA sphere. He only has 8 wins to his name. He's 8-0 to this point. And he's never seen somebody like Volkov, who is a championship level fighter. With Volkov, he is somebody who has extreme level output. He lands over 6 significant strikes per minute. For the heavyweights, that is an insane pace. He's also somebody who finishes 67% of his fights by KO. So he's not afraid of finishing fights. He does it a majority of the time, in fact. And he also has a propensity for scoring a lot of knockdowns. Over his last 4 fights, he has scored over one of them in all of his fights. He goes out there, he has heavy hands, and I expect him to give Gane his first real test. This is something I'm more confident about this week. I think he goes out, he knocks out Gane, probably in the 3rd or 4th round. I don't see it happening in the 1st or 2nd, but given his output, given that he's probably going to land 110, 120 strikes by that point, probably score a knockdown or 2, maybe even get some control time, he's going to be an absolute stud in terms of DraftKings scoring. Again, at $7,500, he's one of my favorite value plays that we've had in the entire year. He might actually be my favorite value play I can remember, period, for DraftKings DFS. And I think a lot of it has to do with Gane, like I said. He seems a little overrated to me. He hasn't had very many high-quality opponents. And he looked shook his last time out when he got hit by Rozenstruik. And Volkov has the same level of power, if not more, with a whole lot more volume. So it's not just going to be one time he gets hit. So and look forward to that. It's a KO. And finally, at number 1, we have Shavkat Rakhmonov, a -270 favorite versus Prazeres, and he does cost $9,100, but I think it's more than worth it. I'm not going to take too long for this argument here, but he has a 100% finish rate in his career, and he's undefeated. And while some might be able to question some of his competition, if we take a look at it a little bit more deeply, he has fought some of the toughest regional competition in the world. And the last time we saw him out in the UFC, he was able to submit Cowboy in the very first round, Cowboy Oliveira. Oliveira is somebody who's a very tough opponent. He's somebody who just doesn't get finished very often. And Shavkat, in his very first fight, did it. And now he faces an opponent who might even be a step down in competition. Nothing against Prazeres. He's just, has a lot of experience. He's just not even on the same level as Oliveira, in my opinion. Vegas has him as the 270 favorite, and we've seen him go out and finish every single fight over his career. It's not even just his professional MMA matches. Apparently back in the amateur scene, he was knocking guys out cold in every single fight. So this guy has the death touch, as they say. I expect him to come out, get a 1st or 2nd round finish. He'll be in every single lineup that I have, especially because he's only $9,100. Typically, guys like this that are huge favorites are closer to $10,000. He's only $9,100. He's very affordable. He's going to be a very good point per dollar play, and he's my favorite play at number 1. And that's all for this week's preview, guys. Let me know in the comments who your favorite play for DFS is for this weekend's fight card. I'm going to be picking a comment for a free month on my Patreon to give out to you guys. If you guys don't use it for the PGA Tour, I'll save it until I have the MMA page up. That'll be in the next month or so. So leave a comment, let me know who you guys think wins, and you can enter that contest. So as always, make sure to like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed the content. It really helps me out with growing my page. It also makes sure that you guys are able to see my content as soon as I post it in the future. So good luck with your DFS lineups, and I will see you guys next week.